Truth revealed.
Truth revealed.
Truth revealed.
Truth revealed.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome to another episode of Truth Revealed. Okay, as we promised you last time, we're going to be continuing what we started. And we always keep to our words. Always. So last time we started a series on desert periods. So welcome to part 2.
Oh, yes.
So wherever you are, just sit down, chill, and get ready as we engage in an interesting discussion.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so in this video, as promised last time, we'll be talking about the purpose of wilderness seasons, of desert periods. Why do we go through desert periods? Why does God allow such seasons in our lives? I'll be looking at that through Bible characters. The Bible is full of people who went through such seasons, and for each there was a reason why. So we try to explain and go further into that. So let's start with Sinjar. C.
Sinjar C. Okay. I think the one reason why God wants you to go through that desert period in your life is, first of all, to teach you how to wait on Him. You know, as human beings, we always want that thing should happen so rapidly. Now. Like, okay, if I need money, the money should come now. And one thing that I've noticed is that the demonic world uses this because they see this as a weakness of man. So they tend to provide easily. But the consequence, the disadvantage is that it always comes with a consequence. And the Bible says in Isaiah chapter 40 verse 31, he said that, but those that wait upon the Lord, they shall be strong and shall renew their strength. They shall run and never get weary. You know that you see that there's an advantage of waiting upon the Lord. When I'm talking about waiting upon the Lord, I'm seeing Hannah in the Bible. She wanted a son so badly. She wanted a child so badly, but God had taught her how to wait upon Him.
God had to teach her to wait for the appointed time, as opposed to what maybe the devil will suggest that. And that was being called witchcraft, using manipulation to get things now, to get things at the time that you want. So I think that God used Anna's wilderness to teach her to wait on Him, to be patient. But I also think another thing that God probably was teaching Anna was to let go of her idols. Because since she, in that period of waiting, she had to learn her sufficiency in God. So much so that when the son eventually came, she was willing to give him back.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yes.
And one thing that about Anna is that I can imagine all the things she had to do in order just to have this son. And a time came in her life where she said, okay, I have to stop. I have to stop. Let me just go and see my creator. Let me go and wait upon him. And it's only when she really waited on him that the breakthrough came about. So God is teaching you how to wait on Him,
and to also let go your idol and look at Him as the only source. Because in that point, God is like, He's like, even in the absence of this thing, I'm still going to make a way for you. So at the end of it all, you're like, okay, God, I've seen that. No, you can surely provide it. Just take this.
And that's something that we usually do in wilderness seasons. We're always trying to look for solutions from here and there. Go to the doctor, who can help me? You're trying to help yourself. But God was teaching her that, okay, after you have tried all these methods, you have visited all the doctors, all the, traditional practitioners. Come back now to me. Wow.
I remember what she said. She said, I have poured my soul in. Like, this is too much. The walking, this is the finality.
That's powerful. Okay, so another Bible character that comes to my mind is Jacob, right? Esau's twin brother. The thing with Jacob was that he had many wrong characters, bad characters to say the least. I mean, he tricked not only once, twice. He tricked his brother, conspired with his brother and tricked his brother. Like, who does that? So what God did was that in his wilderness season, God allowed him to be tricked the same way that he was, the same way that he tricked, right?
Yeah.
At least there was even imagine
Yeah.
having to work 14 years.
Oh.
I mean, God sure knows how to use our circumstances to teach us. So I think another purpose of a wilderness can be to refine our character. So God uses the wilderness to bring down pride, deceit, selfishness. In Jacob's case, for example, like God had to really work on him. Because I remember now when he was going back to meet his brother Esau, there was still a reflection of bad character in him. For example, he was in his fear of what Esau would do to him. He put his wife and children ahead.
Who does that?
I'm serious. He put his wife and children ahead. That kind of like, before he reaches me, he should reach them first. I'm going to have to continue the process because now when we're left alone, God had to come and wrestle with him and even strike him in his hip, to produce a warm Jacob. So he was like the end of it all. God had to just break this selfishness, this self-centeredness in him once and for all. So with that limp, it was a constant reminder to him that he needs God.
And you see his approach towards the brother when we arrived beside his brother, with the way he behaved, it was no longer the Jacob we had. Yes. You could see brokenness in him.
And you even remember the prophecy that was laid upon Jacob, that your brother will bow down in front of you. We actually see the reverse. Like Esau was bowing down, Jacob was bowing down in front of Esau.
Yes. So before that prophecy could be fulfilled, before Esau could bow down to him, God had to bring him to a point where he had to bow down to Esau first.
Yeah, that is just so true, because even when he reached to that extent where Esau will be submitting under, he will no longer take it as pride.
But he knows what it means to bow down to another person. God. Why you Sinjar S? Let me see.
So another person that I'm thinking about, even as we were talking, was Joseph. You see, in Joseph's desert period was to prepare him for what was ahead of him. Joseph there was an assignment on Joseph's life, and God had to bring him through the desert period, that is through the prison in Potiphar's house, in order to prepare him, in order to save millions of a whole generation. So God can be making you pass through that wilderness period in order to help people. So don't despise your wilderness period.
I find that very interesting, that the greatness of his future assignment required a deep wilderness season. Because look at it, Joseph's wilderness period was linked so many people. Like him going through that period successfully will determine whether nations will live. Wow.
And I'm so like, if he compromised, if he looked for a shortcut in that season. Imagine if Potiphar's wife would present herself like, okay, let's lay together. Imagine if he had compromised. Imagine what would have become of the children of Israel.
Of the world.
It was just like a training for him. So in that wilderness period, there were a lot of temptation. He was just like, in the wilderness period, the devil actually bring things that under your normal circumstances you will fall. But one thing is that God uses those things actually to build you in such a way that at the end, when you reach in that position where he's bringing you to, it will no longer mean anything to you. You will not be able to compromise.
And something just came to my mind, because Joseph had his own character issues. For example, as a little boy, he lacked discretion. He was proud, going and showing up everywhere that I'm the favorite son. But now when I look at him now as the governor of Egypt, he had learned discretion so much so that his brothers didn't recognize him. He wasn't all about going and the governor of Egypt. He had learned discretion so much so that there was no longer pride in him. He held this honorable position and didn't feel the need to shout it everywhere that I have arrived.
And I even think even maturity. Just look at it. God had shown you that you will be a great man, but just the way he was just speaking all about, like, okay, I've seen you came on board before me. So it was actually a period of maturity for Joseph. In such a way that God gave him a big task. but he was already spiritually mature. He could handle it, because there are some dreams that when God gives you, if you are not spiritually mature enough, you bring some unnecessary fight into it.
And I think that's even it. I think he brought the enmity between his brothers. The way he was saying it, your stars will bow, the star and the moon will bow in front of me.
I saw my father coming to bow you.
I said, this was that. The way the Bible says is that Jacob took account of it. He was like bowing in front of you. I can imagine. I said that it was really.
So also to slow him down, because at that point, as you were saying, maturity. Because at that point where he wouldn't have able to handle the weight of what was going to happen to. So if you are going through a difficult desert, it might not be a reflection that really what you have, what God has for you, the assignment He has for you, the purpose He has for you is also so great. That's why you need such a difficult training, right? Those that have to do the hardest tasks will go to the more difficult training. Wow.
Okay, Sin, what else?
Another thing, one reason why I believe that we go through desert seasons in our life is to teach us how to be dependent on God. You know, as human beings, we always have this tendency of trying to figure things ourselves. Like God is bringing you to a place in your life where you can fully trust Him, not giving Him half trust and putting another trust in another thing. Like, if this one fail, I can do this one. God actually brings you to a point where everything seems short, and He brings you to where your eyes will be lifted to the hill. That's why David said, I will look up to the hill where my help comes from. At that point in time in David's life, he's like, okay, my help can only come from Jesus. So another person that I see this aspect of dependency is Paul in the Bible. You know, God had brought Paul to a position in his life where he felt like he gloried even in his infirmity. It's like it's no longer I that live, but Christ that lives in him. Despite the persecution, despite everything, he had fully trusted God. He knows that this is for your glory, and it's working out for my good.
That's powerful. All the beatings, all the prison, the affliction, messenger from Satan, all those serve to bring him to that place of dependency. Wow. And another, when you talked about like not having a plan B, another person that came to my mind was Abraham. Abraham was so tired in his wilderness. He was so tired of waiting, or not him, his wife. He was so tired of waiting for plan A that he resorted to a plan B. So Ishmael was now something of his own making, something that he didn't require dependency on God to receive, right? Because Isaac was the fruit of total dependency on God, but Ishmael was the fruit of taking it upon myself to get out of this wilderness. I am tired of this. I'm aborting the process. Right? And even in Abraham's life, the wilderness season served to, I think we mentioned this earlier, served to rid him of every idol. So it got to the point where Abraham was willing to sacrifice Isaac. Why? Because it was something that was given to him by God, from God, right? So he knew that if after waiting for 25 years, God can do this, then he can, he can resurrect him. He can bring him back to me. But imagine that God had asked Abraham to sacrifice Ishmael. It would have been more difficult. It would have been more difficult. Why? Because in this case, Abraham, the fruit of Abraham's own work. So he's like, I cannot give this because I'm going to have another one. Because this is what I did myself. If I sacrifice this, how am I going to have another Ishmael? So
Anita is just so true. I even think as you were speaking now, there's another point that got into my mind. God actually proved to us that He is the God that answers prayers in this wilderness season. Because after you must have been praying, because in the wilderness season you always speak to God, and at the end God comes and He gives you the response. And this thing can help you to hold on to the future. That even in the future, even when you're waiting on God, you still have this firm assurance that He did this for me in the past.
So
and he will
do it
surely do
again.
it again.
So it teaches you trust. The
Yes.
wilderness season teaches you to trust in God. What about you, Sin?
Okay, another reason why God can allow us to pass through the wilderness season is to empower us. Let's look at the example of Jesus Christ. Before he started ministry, God had to bring him in a wilderness period of about 40 days. And then at the end of his wilderness period, we saw the tremendous things he did. Like he could raise the dead, he could do a lot of things after that period of wilderness. So God can be making you to pass through this wilderness period for you to effectively do the work that he has for you.
Empower you
To empower you for the ministry.
Effective ministry.
Effective ministry.
That's powerful. I think that maybe just to conclude, we take the example of Job for example. Job went through a serious season of wilderness, from the death of loss of his children to, I don't know, things were just going downhill. But in his case, it wasn't because of any sin of his. So just to say that in conclusion, sometimes the wilderness is simply an attack of the devil. Not because there's a sin in you that God has to deal with, but just an attack of the devil, and just to bless you at the end. I mean, see at the end, Job the Bible says that he had more. God restored him more than he had originally. Wow.
It was
So
very
girls,
awesome.
we've come to the end of this video.
Les
Oh my
pleurs.
God.
Les pleurs.
Vraiment les pleurs. But this isn't over. The series on desert periods is not over. See you in our next video for the last part, right? The last part.
We
promise.
Don't forget to subscribe.
Subscribe, like, comment, and share this video.
Very important.
Love you guys very much.
We love you.